Between the blustery snowstorms and icy roads making it impossible to leave the house, I find myself yearning for a reprieve from winter's terrible weather. With no way of vacationing on a tropical island, I decided to turn to the next best thing. I'm talking about Summertime Madness, an upcoming first-person puzzle game that'll be bringing a warm breeze to home consoles later this month. And while it may not have kept me from shivering, it did take my mind off of the cars ping-ponging down the icy street outside, probably racking up thousands of dollars in damages. Yeah, winter can be treacherous. Believe it or not, Summertime Madness takes place in Prague towards the end of World War II. We're introduced to an artist who has taken up painting as a way to avoid the death and despair that's happening outside, using the war to inspire beautiful landscapes and places he longs to be. One night, a mysterious man makes him a curious offer. This stylish gentleman knows a way to magically transport the painter into his own work, allowing him to escape the shootings and bombings happening all around his studio. There's just one catch. The artist can only stay in the painting for 6 hours, otherwise he'll be trapped in that canvas forever. Alone and on the brink of madness, he agrees to the terms, thus setting up a colorful adventure full of exploration and puzzle solving. We get a taste of this early on when we're dropped off on a small island with little more than a boat and a lighthouse in the distance. Although it's not immediately clear, the goal is to solve a number of brain teasers in an effort to open up the island and get the artist one step closer to making his way out of the painting. The puzzles start on that boat, but it won't take long before we climb the lighthouse to discover a dangerous challenge high up in the sky that involves rotating the narrow walkways. This eventually leads to an MC Escher-inspired staircase maze, a piano boat, a house controlled by gears, and more. There's an almost dizzying amount of variety in both puzzles and the locations, to the point where you never really know what you're going to see next. And you know, it wasn't just the types of puzzles that I was excited to see, but also what the game would look like. Summertime Madness is absolutely gorgeous and not afraid to dramatically shift tones and styles from one section to the next. The cel-shaded graphics give off a hand-drawn look, bringing both the color and stylish puzzles to life. What's especially impressive is that the game comes from a small team of developers in Italy, yet you wouldn't know it based on the variety of locations and beautiful transitions. There are some truly stunning moments to be found in this adventure game, and the atmospheric soundtrack perfectly sets the mood. You know, the truth is, I was absolutely transfixed with the first half of the game. I loved how the locations and puzzles would change without notice and how abstract the story was. And the fact that we only have 6 real-world hours to complete the game only added to a sense of urgency that you don't normally get from this type of game. The puzzles were also fun to solve, as most of them were challenging without falling into the trap of being frustrating. The first few puzzles are especially strong and set the expectation high for the rest of the game. Unfortunately, it's the second half of the game where everything starts to fall apart. We go from bouncing from one cool location to another at an almost breakneck speed, only to then get stuck at a single stage for almost the entirety of the second half of the game. This game is at its best when the puzzles are small and contained in a little area, like a boat or a house, so when Summertime Madness opens up to reveal a large city to puzzle through, that's where the momentum comes to a screeching halt, which is something that it never recovers from. It doesn't help that this oversized stage is by far the worst looking part of the game, and half the time it's drenched in rain. I longed for the colorful island and warm summer breeze, only to spend most of my time getting wet in an ugly city. That's not to say the rest of the game is perfect, because you can see signs of problems sprinkled throughout the first half. One of the big issues I ran into involved puzzles that were geared towards trial and error solutions. There's one puzzle where you're trying to balance scales using a couple dozen flowers, something that's made incredibly tough because you don't know how much each flower weighs. It ends up just being a guessing game as you rearrange flowers, which is somehow even less fun than it sounds. My other gripe is that the gameplay options are severely lacking. Not only is there no way to toggle the cameras between inverted and normal, but just looking around is slow and sluggish. I also found that the interaction icon didn't always show up, forcing me to carefully inspect every door and button used in the background, which is kind of annoying. Look, it's easy to dwell on these minor gameplay issues and the lackluster puzzles towards the end, but the incredible first half of Summertime Madness more than makes up for anything else. There's a real sense of wonder and surprise early on, and while the crummy second half tries its hardest to undercut the whole thing, the satisfying and shocking ending makes the adventure worth puzzling through, even when it's in the middle of winter. As far as World War II games go, Summertime Madness is by far the brightest and trippiest one that I've ever played. It's an ever-changing, first-person puzzle game with a wide variety of challenges and a few surprises you definitely won't see coming. Unfortunately, the brilliance of the first half is brought down a bit by the laborious second half, which is full of trial and error puzzles and a wide-open stage that is just no fun to explore. Though uneven, Summertime Madness is still worth recommending for the strong opening puzzles and fantastic ending. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What video game would you jump into for 6 hours? That's just long enough to get a taste of it and maybe check out a couple of sites. I'm actually really excited to see what you come up with in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back tomorrow with a brand new magazine retrospective that covers a publication that only lasted 2 issues. Man, it's a crazy story full of lawsuits, bad business practices, and a great games crash. Yeah, you definitely won't want to miss it. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,